Legend of Exorcism. Chapter 39. The Spatial Talisman. Wait a little, Hung Jun hurried to indicate to Yang Yehuan not to say anything. Let me think. He didn't understand the hearts of people, but he wasn't dumb, and as he thought about the causes and the effects, he gradually began to understand the series of events. The Yuzeyun that Lady Qiuqiu had spoken of, her little sister, was perhaps another fox Yao, the white fox that Yang Yehuan had seen before. Wu Qiu and Yuzeyun, both of the fox Yao, were sisters. In that instant, Hung Jun grasped a key detail. Wu Qiu had first possessed Lady Qiuqiu's body, before she had Yuzeyun take advantage of Yang Yehuan's weakness to try and take over her body, and with the soul-sucking power of the fox Yao, they caused the hunpo of the scholars to be trapped in their bodies, using this to change forms swiftly and replace the scholars attending the imperial examination. However, his father Kong Xian seemed to have known that Yuzeyun's target was Yang Yehuan, so he had helped her successfully avoid this bout of misfortune. Hung Jun could almost see the scene of Yuzeyun sneaking in the middle of the night to suck out Yang Yehuan's spirit, before being repelled by the sigil that his father had drawn on her body, which caused her Yao power to be destroyed. What did the sigil look like? Hung Jun continued to ask. Do you still remember? Yang Yehuan pondered for a moment while looking Hung Jun up and down, before shaking her head. Back then, the sigil had been inscribed on her back, and Yang Yehuan had not had a chance to see it up front. But what was with that situation where Wu Qiu had captured Yang Yehuan and brought her to the observation deck? What was the intent behind that? Hung Jun's heart began to thump violently. Perhaps Yuzeyun was not yet dead. Perhaps, this very instant, she was still living in Yang Yehuan's body. If that was really the case, then had his father merely sealed away the fox Yao and not ensured her death? Let me check again, Hung Jun said without another moment's delay, and for the third time, he placed his fingers on Yang Yehuan's pulse point. Yang Yehuan submitted to Hung Jun's inspection as she said, with that bout of heavy illness, in the end, it was Dr. Kong who mixed some medicine and had me drink it, which caused me to slowly get better. Later, did you take any more medicine? Hung Jun asked. Yang Yehuan smiled gently as she responded, the illness was cured from the root on up. From that last inspection, Hung Jun hadn't found anything at all, but at least one thing was certain. Before the fox Yao could steal her soul, something unexpected had happened to it, which was why it had no more traces of Yao energy left now. Congratulations! After thinking for a while, Hung Jun decided to not tell Yang Yehuan about this, and he spoke. Wu Qiu originally wanted to steal your body, but due to some unforeseen mishap, she failed. I imagine this happened around the time that you fell ill. Yang Yehuan said. So she pretended to be my older sister for 10 odd years? No wonder, when I was young, big sister never liked me, but after that heavy illness, she became very concerned about me. In these years, she was actually, but since she was a Yao, why was she so caring towards me? Hung Jun looked into Yang Yehuan's eyes. After a long while, he said, perhaps she really wanted a younger sister. Tears welled up in Yang Yehuan's eyes, and she was silent for a long time. As those tears slowly trickled down her cheeks, she stifled a sob in her throat as she responded, I don't dare to cry, because my eldest sister actually turned out to be a Yaogwai that brought ruin upon this country and was a bane of the people. Though His Majesty has been gracious in not interrogating my Yang family's crime, in my eyes, no matter if she is a Yao or a human, she will always be my eldest sister. Do you understand that? Hung Jun hadn't expected that Yang Yehuan would actually begin to cry, and he slowly began to understand her grief. Though Lady Qiuqiu was a fox Yao, in Yang Yehuan's eyes she was a loved one, and upon losing a loved one, who wouldn't be sad? Yet, she didn't dare to say anything, and even less so did she dare to mourn too much in front of Li Longji. Hung Jun rolled down his sleeve, which still had a fishy odor, offering it to Yang Yehuan. She managed to wipe her tears with it, and Hung Jun sat there quietly accompanying her, not saying a single word. How about I sing a song for you? Hung Jun said. Yang Yahuan didn't respond, so Hung Jun began to sing quietly. In spring the river rises as high as the sea, the bright moon over the sea seemed to be born of the tide. That day, after listening to Li Guinan sing this, he learned this piece as well. In this instant, as that handsome youth's voice began to sing quietly, though there was no accompanying music, it still held that gentle and comforting feeling to it. The stars above were brilliant, and the night wind was bone-piercingly chilly as Li Longji and Li Jinglong walked on the plaza. Li Jinglong was young and vigorous, so he was not afraid of the cold, but Li Longji was old. Li Jinglong was afraid that several continued days of working hard combined with the cold wind would cause the emperor to go back and catch a cold, so he brought up the suggestion that they return to the hall to wait, but Li Longji waved it off. When Zhen was about your age, Zhen had to hide his abilities and bide his time, subjecting himself to the attacks of many people's rumors and gossip in the palace. Now that Zhen thinks about it, the Zhen of that period was very similar to how you were some years ago. Li Jinglong had also heard of such a matter before, when Empress Wu was on the throne. In order to protect himself, Li Longji fooled around every day to maintain a facade of being mud that couldn't even be plastered to a wall, which was how he had managed to survive until he overthrew Shang Guanwaner and her group. However, in his heart, he thought, back then you were merely biding your time, but I'm just purely unlucky. But people live in a society, and no matter if they are gold and jade covered in dust, there will be a day where they can release their brilliance, Li Longji continued. This point is one where you and Zhen are very alike. Li Jinglong hurried to say that he dare not aspire to that, before he responded, if it weren't for my brothers of the exorcism department putting their lives on the line to defeat the Yao, this subject would only be a ruffian at best. Li Longji began to smile, and he patted Li Jinglong's shoulder as he said with great feeling, but as soon as you pick this road to travel, you should know that it will not be easy to traverse in the future. Though this is an unkind way to put it, but perhaps, under Hunger's command, none of you will need to reveal your identities to the public. After hearing that sentence that Li Hung had spoken tonight, I hope that this sharp sword that is the exorcism department will never have the opportunity to leave its sheath, Li Jinglong had already understood in his heart. The power of the exorcism department was a double-edged sword. Though it could protect the Great Tang, as soon as they rebelled, they would also be able to shake the very foundations of the country, bringing great calamity to the citizens. For Li Longji to bring it up once again meant that it was a warning. Technically, the one method for the exorcism department to never threaten the power of the imperial court was to have them maintain their absolute independence, which meant not participating in politics, not conspiring with others, not receiving merits, and not even having the opportunity to get involved in discussing government affairs. Even officials of the imperial court shouldn't understand too much about the exorcism department. Li Longji's meaning was very clear: from this moment on, you all should not expect any promotions in ranks, any announcements of your achievements to the world or receiving rewards for them, or any chance to make contact with officials of the imperial court and get involved in court politics. You all must only listen to the crown prince and conduct matters discreetly without coming into the limelight. Otherwise, as soon as you receive the admiration of too many citizens and your name becomes famous, things will only get more and more troublesome as time passes. This was also the solution that Li Longji had come up with, for such a situation with no solution. But, for a man living in this world, how few of them would be able to accept living a life that was buried in oblivion? Li Jinglong was silent for a moment, before he said, "This subject fully understands." Upon hearing that, Li Longji nodded. In the horse carriage, Hung Jun sang the last line. Yang Yahuan's emotions finally calmed, and despite her still reddened eyes, the corners of her mouth curved ever so slightly upwards in a mournful smile. This time, with you coming back to Chang'an, Yang Yahuan asked, was it to thoroughly investigate the matter of your parents' deaths? Hung Jun nodded. Yang Yahuan then said, after that epidemic, your paternal grandfather's family was almost all gone, but as for your mother's side of the family, they were a prominent family in Hexi before your birth. Your maternal grandfather was once the provincial governor of Hexi, and I remember that you still have an uncle. His name is one that I've forgotten, but 15 years ago he was promoted to the position of county governor of Jinchang. However, after the matter with suppressing the Xiongnu invasion, he was demoted, and I don't know if he was reassigned to Shizhu or Guazhu. You are all saviors of my life, and if you have any needs, you may go to the Chancellor's manor. Ask the housekeeper to pass the message on to my older brother, and at that time, he can help you look into the matter. After your uncle returns to court to make his report, you can at least try to have a family reunion. Hung Jun hurried to thank her. Yang Yahuan then pulled out a food box that she had placed to her side, saying, "The pastries that you like, I managed to bring you a few in passing as well." "Thank you." This time, Hung Jun was truly happy, and his smile immediately swept across his entire face. Hung Jun left the horse carriage. The weather was cold, so he had Yang Yahuan stay inside. Li Longji and Li Jinglong came strolling back, and the horse carriage turned around. Li Jinglong's brows were faintly furrowed, and he shot a look towards Hung Jun. After Li Jinglong had his discussion with the emperor, Hung Jun sensed that he seemed to be a little dejected, so he asked, "What's wrong?" Li Jinglong didn't reply, so Hung Jun opened the box and said, "I'll let you have a piece, cheer up." "I'm really jealous of you," Li Jinglong said solemnly. "You're so happy every day." Hung Jun began to smile. When he heard of his father and mother's past, he had felt a little sorrowful, but he had also felt joy, as if he had found a unique sense of belonging as he spoke with someone who knew about the past. When Yang Yahuan had spoken of his father who he had long since had no memory of and brought up his mother's name, it was as if he was forming a strange connection with humans. He was also one of them, and this realm of red dust that included everything under the sun, with a matter-of-fact attitude, had accepted him. That night, when Hung Jun and Li Jinglong returned to the exorcism department, every room was lit with the warm glow of yellow lanterns. A glazed lantern had even been placed by the side of the Carpiao's pond. Hung Jun yawned. Li Jinglong asked earnestly, "Right now, what are you thinking of?" Hung Jun thought for a moment, but before he could answer, Li Jinglong said, "I want to knock on each of their doors one by one, to speak with them a little." Hung Jun stood in the hallway, looking at the lights from behind the doors to each room as he said, "I think that looking at this scene, it's really nice." Li Jinglong nodded and nodded. "So I'll let it go. Go to sleep early, tomorrow we're going to the Walking Palace to soak in the hot springs." "Really?" Hung Jun cheered. "What?" The people in the rooms heard the commotion, but Li Jinglong hurriedly turned and left. Chu Yongxi didn't ask more, and Hung Jun returned to his room to sleep. The night passed, and when Li Jinglong rose in the morning, he saw Chu Yongxi, Mo Rijin, A Tai, Hung Jun, and the Carpiao, these 4 people and 1 fish standing outside of the main entrance to the exorcism department, studying the doors. "Morning, Zhenqi," Mo Rijin smiled. Li Jinglong observed that door, where Chu Yongxi was holding a brush whose tip was dipped in vermilion as he drew a sigil on the door. "What's this for?" Li Jinglong asked. Hung Jun replied, "Brother Yongxi got inspiration from Lady Qiaoqiuo's sigil, and he wants to try and see if he can seal up the place where the exorcism department resides." A Tai explained, "Otherwise, it wouldn't be good if someone does barge in by mistake, or if thieves manage to break in." Li Jinglong thought, what a good idea. If they could use illusions or open up a separate dimension to separate the exorcism department from everywhere else, then that would prevent future situations like the emperor coming in for an inspection only for everyone to still be asleep. "Curve it a little more this way," Hung Jun said, pointing to the sigil on the door. "See here," Chu Yongxi gestured for Hung Jun to look to the side as he replied, "the incantation of flying stones moving mountains and filling seas." "Yes, yes." Hung Jun was just at the age where he was interested in everything, and as things currently stood, it seemed like the one he admired the most was Chu Yongxi. A Tai had the godly hurricane fan which could produce wind, fire, ice, and sand, but it was still a power confined to the 5 elements. Origin's 7-nailed arrows could pursue an enemy of their own accord, and he could also shift into the Grey Wolf, but these abilities were still within acceptable bounds. Only Chu Yangzi, who not only could flatten Yaogui into a painting with a wave of his brush, but could also cause the things in paintings to leap out of the canvas, and was also a great master of incantations, had entirely exceeded what Hung Jun was familiar with. With the addition of his deep knowledge of artifacts, these factors caused Hung Jun to admire him greatly. "You can add a little bit of decoration," Hung Jun added. "You want to do it?" Chu Yangzi smiled. Hung Jun took the brush, thought deeply for a moment, before drawing a few small decorations on the sigil, saying, "It's good." After that, everyone backed up. Chu Yangzi said, "This is the first time that the doors will open and close, so why doesn't Zhenqi do it? In the future we can think of ways to set up a mechanism for it, but right now, what we have will do." Saying this, Origin taught Li Jinglong the activation chant for the array. Li Jinglong stood in the middle of the alleyway, his hand glowing with the light of the heart lamp. The entire alleyway underwent a strange twisting, and with a wang the sigil that had been altered began to glow. The loose cobblestones all around began to rise up into the air, and with several peng-pengs, they sealed off the main gate, covering it up entirely. It worked. Hung Jun only felt extremely amazed. "If you turn the sigil the other way, you can unlock it," Chu Yangzi reminded him. Li Jinglong pushed one hand forward, and the stones began to give off light. With another boom, the sigil on the door rotated the other way, and the cobblestones all flew away, revealing the main gate again. The doors opened inwards, and the statue of Akela in its lofty position in the main hall stared down at the 5 people in the alley. "Amazing!" Li Jinglong was extremely pleased, and afterwards the rest of them tried it out one by one. This had finally solved one of their issues, and from today onwards, the exorcism department would be a completely independent government building that only those who they wished to enter could set foot in. Even if it was the crown prince himself, he would still have to wait for them to open the doors. Right then, Li Longji's reward for them came. The matter of promotions was not brought up, and Li Jinglong still remained their Zhenqi, but they were given 6 horses, in addition to 40 bolts of brocade, 200 liang of gold, 40 dan of grain, plus 6 pieces of golden veined nan mu, to be made into waist tallies for the exorcism department to use. There was also a small box, inside of which was one of the bones of the great master Xuanzang. The Carpiao hugged that relic, feeling a small bit of sadness that it couldn't vocalize. The horses that Li Longji had given them were good Dayuan horses, and what was even more impressive was that all 6 had different coat colors. The Carpiao instantly grew bug-eyed at that, and it asked, "How will I ride it?" "Everyone." The Carpiao clambered onto the saddle, but its feet couldn't even reach the stirrups, it could only manage to tighten its legs around the horse's flanks, its fish head pointed up at the sky, only able to look to either side and not in front. If it were to ride the horse out like this, most of the people who witnessed this scene would probably be frightened out of their wits. "That," Hung Jun said. "You'd be better off clinging to my back. If we're going out, then bring my horse along too, ba," the Carpiao said. "If everyone's gone, leaving it behind at home will be too lonely for it." Li Jinglong could only promise to do so, and he said, "Let's go to Mt. Li to soak in the hot springs." Everyone cheered at that, and they steered their horses out of the back alleyway, leaving Chang'an through the western gate as they headed towards Mt. Li. Hung Jun had selected the white horse, and with himself in front, he left the others in the dust as he galloped across the plains. Li Jinglong, riding a red piebald, caught up to him, with Chu Yangzi, riding a grey horse, Origin riding a black one, and A Tai riding a light yellow one trailing behind him. At the very end was a riderless light grey horse, galloping along as swiftly as the wind. Li Jinglong said, "Your horse riding skills aren't as good as mine. Then come chase me." Hung Jun turned his head and called, "My horse is definitely faster than yours." I don't believe it. Why don't we see whose horse first arrives at Mt. Li? Origin shouted as he shot past them. Ho! A Tai said. Want to bet? All right. Chu Yangxi said loudly. Let's bet 1 jug of Hupa wine. Whoever gets there first gets to drink it all. Li Jinglong said, you guys will lose very badly. Whoever gets to Mt. Li first will be the big brother of the exorcism department from now on. Sure dash, the rest of them all shouted. And saying this, with a whistle, the occultique horses sped up instantly as each of them chirped their horses forward, racing like lightning across the plains towards Mt. Li. 2 Shishan later, the victor was clear. The first horse to arrive at Mt. Li was that riderless light grey piebald. Li Jinglong was number 2, Origin number 3, Chu Yangxi number 4, A Tai number 5, and Hung Jun dead last. Everyone! Am I going to become the big brother? The Carpiao's expression was stunned, that miracle had come too quickly, taking the fish completely by surprise. Li Jinglong said, this can't count, right, no one was on the horse. But just now, Origin said, Hung Jun said, whose horse first gets to Mt. Li, he didn't say who first gets to Mt. Li. The Carpiao, from its place riding behind Hung Jun, said, a gentleman's word can't be retracted. Quick, call me big brother. Li Jinglong stammered, this, big. Calling a Carpiao big brother was really something that Li Jinglong couldn't do. In the future, when the exorcism department had to move out in unison, when he imagined a Carpiao leading the Great Tang's assigned officials and 5 exorcists to do battle across the land, that scene really was a mentally devastating one. The rest of them looked at Li Jinglong, thinking, don't say it, don't say it. If you don't say it, then the rest of us don't have to either, but as soon as you recognize a hairy-legged carp as the big brother, then the rest of us have nowhere to turn, and no way to get out of it. Big brother, Li Jinglong said. I can't hear you, speak up a little, the Carpiao said, putting its hands on its waist. So Li Jinglong could only say, big brother. Big brother. Hey, second brother, the Carpiao said. In this instant, his emotions were very complex, but Zhenqi could only mourn that his life was cruel. After shouting that line, he seemed to have given up on his entire life, his face clouded with misery, as he rode on ahead on his own up the mountain. The rest of them could only be the little brothers, and even Hung Jun felt a little unable to vocalize that title. He tried it out, calling the Carpiao big brother, before saying, let's go, let's go. Time to go soak in the hot springs. End chapter. Legend of Exorcism. Chapter 40. The Warm Waters of Huaking. Huaking Palace had been destroyed until it was a mess of ruins, and it was currently undergoing repairs. Originally, the spring that the imperial consort and the emperor soaked in wouldn't be open for use to Li Jinglong and the rest, but in the southwestern corner there stood a lone mountain wrapped in clouds, its peak covered in green forests, and within the valley was another hall built behind the mess of construction. It was also elegant and quiet. The hot springs in this place were located in a grove of pines. Last night, the first snow had fallen on Mt. Li, covering the pine trees, and quite a few icicles had formed on them. The Crown Prince Li Hung had personally told the servants within the hall that they must treat the members of the exorcism department with the utmost respect, so when Li Jinglong arrived, servants came to welcome him in, and the group prepared for their vacation of 3 days and 2 nights here. It was afternoon, and the fog coiled around the summit of the mountain, circling around the numerous side peaks, forming a cloud waterfall that billowed down from the high valley where the side hall was. The light made it seem like it was early morning or twilight, as the birds twittered incessantly and squirrels leapt between the trees of the grove. Herons were being raised in the courtyard. This scene was very relaxing and pleasing to the eye. Compared to our exorcism department, which place is better? Li Jinglong asked easily as he pressed a hand to his sword, walking through the hallway with the rest of them. Each has their own good points, Chu Yongxi responded, standing in front of the courtyard. But their paintings and calligraphy aren't as good as those of our place. Li Jinglong smiled and nodded. Hung Jun, standing in front in the hallway, stretched, before noticing Li Jinglong's expression. To that, he said, recently, Zhenqi's been smiling more. Li Jinglong's face turned red out of nowhere as he responded, it's free time now, and we'll gather up again when it's time for dinner. And with that, everyone dispersed, each of them going back to their rooms to change clothes and soak in the hot springs. Hung Jun had been given a small room all the way to the side, and tea, hot towels, a bathrobe, and other such items had already been prepared within it. In the courtyard, the Carpiao, holding that Buddhist relic in its arms as it stood in the bridge, looked down at the koi below, before it grabbed a little bit of fish food, eating some as it tossed the rest down to feed the fish. Aren't you going? I'm not going, the Carpiao responded. What's the point of soaking in water every day? I don't like sulfur. Let me take a look. Hung Jun changed into a bathrobe and came out, reaching for the Buddhist relic that the Carpiao held, saying, I heard them talk about it. The person who saved your life seemed to be a pretty famous great master. He became a Buddha, the Carpiao said. The Zantan Gonged Buddha. I still remember that he told me that I needed to gather more merits to become a dragon, just leaping over the dragon gate is of no use. Hung Jun sent the Carpiao off to entertain itself before walking through the hallway to the hot springs in the back of the mountain. Just as he passed by Li Jinglong's room and peeked inside, he saw that Li Jinglong had already changed into a bathrobe. His cross-legged posture in front of the table revealed his broad, sturdy chest, and with his head lowered, he was currently mixing up some medicine in a small bowl in front of him. Come in ba, help me out, Li Jinglong said. Hung Jun smelled that pungent scent of medicine, it seemed to be something for injuries. He didn't ask any more as he went over to help Li Jinglong mix the medicine, saying, this medicine stops bleeding and promotes healing, are you injured? Li Jinglong glanced at Hung Jun, but he didn't speak. Your dad was a doctor before? Li Jinglong asked. Hung Jun nodded and replied, ever since I was small, Chongming taught me pharmacology. Li Jinglong buried his head and continued to mix the medicine. I imagine it's because of your father that your adopted father let you learn medicine to save people ba. When Li Jinglong put it that way, Hung Jun immediately understood. He recalled that day when he was young and opened his eyes, just to see that tear sliding down Chongming's face. He and his father Kong Xian had been good brothers, perhaps just like himself and Li Jinglong. If there came a day when Li Jinglong died and his children came into Hung Jun's care, that feeling of sorrow would be equally incomparable. Thinking to there, he finally understood what kind of emotions were hidden in Chongming's gaze every time he looked at Hung Jun. Li Jinglong had taught him many things. Many small details he hadn't thought of before were slowly growing clear, their shapes appearing out of the fog of oblivion. Hung Jun watched him curiously as he mixed the medicine, and it wasn't until the sun had set in the west that Li Jinglong had carefully finished making that bowl of salve. He rose and said, let's go. The other three must have already finished soaking and gone into the valley to relax. In the thin light of dusk, the shores of the spring were covered in rising steam, and an assortment of items had been placed there, along with a screen. Take off your clothes, but don't hurry to get in the water, let me take a look at you, Li Jinglong said, holding the bowl of medicine. Hey! Hung Jun hadn't expected Li Jinglong to bring up such an odd request, and he immediately felt a little awkward. To see if you have any other injuries on your body, Li Jinglong said earnestly. Hung Jun replied, they've already healed. Li Jinglong didn't speak, staring into Hung Jun's eyes, saying, what are you ashamed of? Saying this, Li Jinglong put the bowl down, tugged open his belt, took off his bathrobe, and threw it on the ground. His muscular body was slender and well-formed, and the broad, defined planes of his chest were beautiful and sturdy, his abdominal muscles well-arranged and powerful. Redness instantly swept across Hung Jun's face. Though all of them were male, he had never seen his colleagues' bodies in the nude before, and his heart began to beat violently. "Quick, take off your clothes," Li Jinglong chivied him, his face also red. Hung Jun's breathing quickened, and he couldn't resist watching Li Jinglong, as he untied his own bathrobe and put it to one side. A moment later, he grew a little more at ease, but he was unable to keep his eyes from looking over Li Jinglong, thinking, "Wow, Zhenqi's physique is so good." Li Jinglong's shoulders were broad, his legs long, and even when he had been 14, he had been a natural clothes hanger. Plus, he diligently practiced martial arts, so his entire body had the build of a classic martial artist. His skin was a healthy wheat color, and the lines of his muscles were smooth and gentle. His skin was like brocade. This was the figure and skin tone that Hung Jun most envied. He always felt that he was too pale, whereas there were not too many or too few lines of muscles on Li Jinglong, and he could only be described with the word perfect. Plus, his thing was really big. Li Jinglong's thing was thick, long, and beautiful. It seemed to be a little poised and ready to go, and if it grew hard, it might even be 1 qi long. Hung Jun tamped down the nervousness he felt, but as his face reddened he couldn't resist looking back at Li Jinglong, who stiffly rubbed his nose a few times. When he saw Hung Jun's handsome, youthful body, he almost had a nosebleed as he swept his gaze up and down over it. "What are you looking at me for?" Li Jinglong asked. "Zhenqi, you're so big." Hung Jun almost drooled a little with envy. The power that Li Jinglong's form held was what those with handsome youths' physiques like him admired the most. "You're not supposed to look at that." Li Jinglong grew awkward. He continued, "You turn your body, turn around." Hung Jun. Li Jinglong had Hung Jun stand on the edge of the hot spring, looking into the water. On the waters of the cold pool appeared the reflection of their naked bodies. Hung Jun's skin was fair, his brows were dark, and his eyes clear and bright. Though he was only 16, his body's frame had already begun to mature, but it was different from Li Jinglong's martial artist's physique. His body was long and lithe, and because he often played around with his throwing knives and the pentacolor sacred light, he had managed to gain some indistinct outlines of chest and abdominal muscles. His skin was as smooth as milk that had just been poured out, and as the two of them lowered their heads and looked into the water, when Hung Jun saw Li Jinglong's body, his thing actually perked up a little. "Between you and me, what difference is there?" Li Jinglong suddenly asked. Hung Jun jolted, turning his head to look at Li Jinglong, who lifted one hand and placed it on his shoulder. In that instant, Hung Jun suddenly felt an impulse to turn his body and lean against Li Jinglong's shoulder. "You're also a human, right?" Li Jinglong continued. "Of course." Hung Jun felt this question had come out of the blue. He hadn't expected Li Jinglong to ask this, so he answered, "What's wrong?" As Li Jinglong looked into Hung Jun's eyes, his words died off again. At this point, both their faces had a smear of a red blush across them. Hung Jun's heart began to beat faster and faster, and he already felt a little dizzy. Li Jinglong added, "Then, get in ba." Li Jinglong suddenly pushed him towards the warm water. Hung Jun's guard was down, his entire body slipped in, and he let out a loud shout. Li Jinglong laughed loudly, swiftly walking over to pick up the medicine bowl. Hung Jun's head emerged from the water, and he said angrily, "You were screwing with me." Li Jinglong also sank into the hot spring. Just as Hung Jun pressed down on his head to bully him into the water, Li Jinglong said, "Don't fuss. Let me apply some medicine on you." He locked Hung Jun's wrist in his grasp, making him lean up against the side of the pool as he said, "Let me wash you first." Hung Jun's entire face was bright red. "I thought you had something to say." "Let me take a look," Li Jinglong said. "Don't move your head." Hung Jun reached a hand out to tickle Li Jinglong, but he hadn't expected that with one grasp he would grab Li Jinglong's that instead. Li Jinglong couldn't control his reaction and had already turned hard, so he immediately grew extremely awkward, backing up a little, saying seriously, "Sit up straight, let me see your wound." So Hung Jun obediently leaned up against the bank, his shoulders and back rising and falling with each breath. Li Jinglong brought over a cloth towel and said, "Don't always keep touching your ear." After Hung Jun's ear had been injured that day, he had dressed the injury himself. But as time went on, it grew a little itchy, and every now and then he would reach out a hand to press against it. He wanted the flesh to knit back together faster, and sometimes when he slept, he would accidentally touch it as well. "It's even festering," Li Jinglong said, his brows furrowed deeply and his heart pained. Hung Jun tilted his head and pillowed it on the bank of the pool, his eyes flicking back and forth as he looked at Li Jinglong, replying, "After it forms a scab on its own, then it'll be good." The water of the hot springs was warm. Li Jinglong pressed a little closer. He first helped him clean the wound, their breaths mingling and noses pressing close to one another's, and Hung Jun's heart once again began to beat violently. "Zhenqi, what are you thinking about?" Hung Jun kept feeling like today's Li Jinglong was acting a little strange. "I'm thinking that, turns out your body isn't entirely covered in fish stink." Li Jinglong wiped down the wound, before bringing over the bowl to apply the medicine for Hung Jun. Hung Jun said, "Thank you. You suffered this all because of me," Li Jinglong sighed. He continued, "One day, if your dad was to know, then he would definitely beat me to death. And you're still thanking me?" Hung Jun said, "He won't know. When he does know, then my ear will already have healed over." Li Jinglong carefully used a wooden spoon to apply the paste onto Hung Jun's ear, saying, "Didn't you want to take me back home with you for a visit? When are we going?" "Ah!" Hung Jun had entirely forgotten about this. That day, he had been so drunk that he wasn't aware of his surroundings, and afterwards, he had completely blacked out. Li Jinglong then reminded him of the events that had happened while he was drunk, and Hung Jun immediately grew awkward. Li Jinglong then said, "I don't care, you promised me." Hung Jun had always kept his promises, but Li Jinglong and companions were exorcists, and the inhabitants of Yaojin Palace were all considered Yao. How was he supposed to resolve that? For a long time, Hung Jun was stumped by this problem. Every time he thought of this point, he always had a strong feeling that perhaps his companions would avoid him from then on. "Do you have something to tell me?" Li Jinglong's head lowered a little more. He wasn't looking into Hung Jun's eyes, rather focusing his entire attention on smearing on the medicinal paste. Yes." Hung Jun's heart thumped, "Putong putong." He stared into Li Jinglong's eyes, but Li Jinglong purposefully avoided his gaze. And it was just at this instant that Li Jinglong's fingertips began to tremble faintly. Before this, Hung Jun had already considered the matter many times. Qing Xiang had once said that after exorcising the Chang'an Yao King, they would be able to return to Chang'an, but with this return, would they clash with the exorcism department? "My father was a Yao, my mother was a human, then does that make me a Yao or a human?" He had also asked the Carpiao that before, and the Carpiao's response to this was that even if Chongming were to set foot once again in the human realm, he would definitely not bring harm upon the common citizens like the Fox Yao had. Of course, none of them could be considered good birds, and perhaps conflict was not something they could avoid in the end. "Ever since you came to the exorcism department, you've always had something on your mind," Li Jinglong then asked, "because of your mother and father?" After smearing on the salve, Li Jinglong then brought over bandages, saying, "After I put these on, don't go touching your ear again. Change the medicine once every 3 days, I'll come do it for you." Hung Jun and Li Jinglong continued, "Though I don't know your past, but I hope that one day, you will be able to tell me about what you're worrying over. If you trust me, that is." An impulse suddenly rose in the depths of Hung Jun's heart. "Zhenqi. Li Jinglong sat down to one side, resting his elbows on the side of the pool. Hung Jun turned his head, hesitating again and again, before finally saying, "Zhenqi, there's something that I've always been hiding from you guys." Li Jinglong's forehead scrunched up, and his gaze was puzzled. "I, actually am a half Yao." After Hung Jun said this sentence, his heart hung suspended in mid-air, unable to come back down. But after hearing these words, Li Jinglong suddenly began to smile as he said, as expected. Hung Jun." Li Jinglong lifted the cloth towel out of the water, wiping his arms with it as he asked, "Your dad is also a Yao, right? And he saved the life of the imperial consort?" Hung Jun said, confused, "You aren't going to avoid me?" "As soon as I saw Zhao Zilong," Li Jinglong said easily, "I guessed that you definitely had some deep connections with the Yao tribe." "Hung Jun, we once entrusted our lives to each other, so allow me to ask one thing. If you don't want to answer, you don't need to. You were sent here by another faction of Yao, did I guess that right?" Having his identity suddenly guessed correctly by Li Jinglong, Hung Jun was a little at a loss for what to do next. But with Li Jinglong's careful handling of affairs, everything was within his predictions. Hung Jun could only obediently nod once as he answered, "Ousting the Chang'an Yao King was the duty that Chongming and Qingxiang entrusted me with before I went down the mountain." "And then what?" Li Jinglong stared into Hung Jun's eyes, as if he wanted to see right through to his innermost thoughts and feelings. Li Jinglong had long since had such a hunch that in the darkness, there was this battle being fought over this human capital, and the two great factions of the Yao tribe were using Chang'an as their arena. As of today, the nine-tailed fox had lost, so could it be that the power behind Hung Jun was going to successfully take over that new position? This was what he was most worried about. "I don't know," Hung Jun said. "But no matter what, if Chongming comes back, it'll be good, and if he doesn't, that's all right too. He would never eat humans or harm them. Chongming was a phoenix, and even with the water that he drank, he wouldn't drink well water or snow melt. He was even pickier in his eating habits, so how could he go eat amortal soaked in their worldly dust?" "You're a human," Li Jinglong said earnestly. "Hung Jun, you are a human. After taking off your clothes just now, between you and me, what difference do you think there is?" Li Jinglong knew that Hung Jun was not very familiar with subtlety. When words were hidden in other words, he couldn't understand them. At this, Hung Jun finally understood, and Li Jinglong smiled gently at that. "Actually, today I was also worried that you would have something different compared to mortals, which was why we came over so late, to prevent you from being seen by the others." Saying this, Li Jinglong stepped forward, picking up Hung Jun's hand and pressing it to his own chest, while he pressed one of his hands against Hung Jun's chest. "Listen," Li Jinglong said. "My heart and yours are both in the same spot, and in your body runs the blood of humans." Hung Jun smiled. That's true. He could feel Li Jinglong's valiant, heroic heart beating powerfully, giving off a warm light. "I believe that your adoptive father sent you to Chang'an exactly because of this," Li Jinglong said. "But that might only be a guess born of my own wishful thinking." Hung Jun said, "Zhenqi, if there comes a day where we can't help but fight each other, at that time, I definitely won't be able to attack you," Li Jinglong replied swiftly, before continuing solemnly, "Why did you say it like I would be able to beat you?" Hung Jun began to chuckle. Li Jinglong placed a hand on his head, rubbing it firmly as he continued, "But I will do my best to defend myself. I just hope that at that time you show some mercy and don't beat me up too badly." Hung Jun laughed loudly, saying, "I won't, Zhenqi. I'm human. I'm also human." Li Jinglong scooted over one spot, letting Hung Jun sit by his side. Their arms were right next to each other. Hung Jun leaned back a little towards the side of the pool, so Li Jinglong lifted his arm, letting Hung Jun rest his head on it to prevent his ear from touching the water. "Last night, when the imperial consort brought up my mom, I had this kind of feeling," Hung Jun tilted his head, speaking quietly into Li Jinglong's ear. The green mountains were starkly outlined against the sky as the setting sun sank in the west. As the two of them soaked in the hot spring, small snowflakes began to drift down one by one from the sky. Yahoo! What are you two doing? Wow, are you guys whispering sweet nothings into each other's ears? Chu Yongxi, Mo Rijin, and A Tai leapt unrestrainedly into the pool. Li Jinglong was greatly startled, not expecting that they actually hadn't gone for a soak yet, and he hurried to protect Hung Jun's ear, saying, "Be a little more careful, I just finished dressing it." The other three hurried over to inspect it, and only after making sure that the dressing on the ear hadn't been touched by the water did they finally sit down with relief. "Come, come," Mo Rijin grinned. "Hung Jun, come sit in my lap." "Hung Jun," Chu Yongxi said, "Hung Jun, don't mind him, come here and sit in Gage's lap." Hung Jun's entire face turned bright red as he said, "Stop it." A Tai smiled. "Then come sit on my lap." Li Jinglong said, "I'm leaving, you guys keep playing." Just as Li Jinglong was about to climb onto the bank, he was tugged back down again by Mo Rijin. Li Jinglong said angrily, "You all are turning on me." At that, Chu Yongxi laughed loudly, and the three of them took turns pressing Li Jinglong into the water. Hung Jun hurried to say, "Hey! How can you all treat Zhenqi like this?" "What?" Mo Rijin laughed. "Your heart aches for his struggles." Li Jinglong's head was completely soaked, but just as he was about to beat them up, Hung Jun added, "Treating Zhenqi like this, and not counting me in. This is too cruel." Saying this, Hung Jun also leapt on Li Jinglong. The twilight was deepening as dust rose from all directions in the desert. A horn sounded, and the light of the dying sun was like blood. On the heights of the watchtowers, the guards shouted in panic. "Enemy ambush dash! An enemy is coming! Is it the Xiangnu? I don't know." Dang dang dang! Up above the center of Minsha County, the alarm bells tolled. Infants cried without stopping, and women shouted shrilly in panic. "How many people are there?" the commander of the city guard shouted as he raced up the steps of the city tower. 3,000, no, 12,000, more than that. More than that. Form ranks. Close the gates. The guards pushed the winch into motion, and the city gates slammed shut with a boom. Thousands of soldiers rushed up onto the walls, drawing bows and knocking arrows, and dust flew everywhere as a large black mass of at least 50,000 black-armored cavalry arrived outside of the city. On the Gobi Desert, there was not a single sound, and even the whinnies of war horses were absent. The soldier wearing a black helmet lowered his head, holding a long spear in his hands, as if he hadn't seen the rows and rows of arrows along the city wall. At this time, there were barely 5,000 city guards total in Minsha County. The siege forces' arrival had taken them by surprise, as the Great Wall on the horizon did not have grey smoke like the color of a wolf's pelt rising from a signal fire. "Where did they come from?" the city guard commander asked with a shaky voice. The black-armored general at the head of the forces lifted the long spear, pointing it at Minsha County, and 50,000 riders lifted their spears at once. With a shake of their reins, the heavens and earth were filled with the sound of the horses' hooves striking the dirt below, and the world shook as they rushed like an unstoppable wave towards Minsha County. "Shoot dash! Quickly, shoot!" Thousands of arrows were loosed from bowstrings on top of the city walls, darting towards the enemy troop that charged forward like a tsunami, but the sight of men being thrown off their horses was missing. The arrows pierced into the bodies of the men and horses attacking the city, turning them into scarecrows stabbed full of arrows, and right after that the vanguard slammed heavily into the city wall. The city walls made of rammed earth instantly collapsed. Thousands of black-armored troops leapt over the rubble, rushing into the city. End chapter.